Welcome to this class on migration and human rights. My name is Elena Olea. I am professor at the Human Rights Center of Universidad Diego Portales. In this class, I will cover 6 points: human displacement, refugees, asylum, internal displacement, migrants, and victims of human smuggling and trafficking. Displacement is a human condition. Individuals have always moved from their original places of settlement, seeking food, shelter, and protection from danger. Migration has also been a strategy used by humans when their means of livelihood have been destroyed or to protect themselves from extreme weather conditions, natural disasters, human conflict, and other factors that put their lives at risk. As humankind developed, migration has continued as a response to the challenges of contemporary life. People migrate for reasons of employment, health, education, or lifestyle options. Migration is also a survival strategy in situations of armed conflict, human rights violations, generalized violence, and natural and human-made disasters, among others. An essential feature of displacement in the 20th century is its massiveness, as pointed out by Habermas. It is estimated that there are 229 million persons living outside their countries of origin. It is estimated that there are 27.5 million internally displaced persons, IDPs. That is, persons who have been forced to abandon their homes but remain in their countries of origin. The figure of those who have displaced themselves voluntarily within a state is very difficult to estimate. The massive nature of contemporary displacement tests the state's capacities to control its emigration and immigration flows and to adequately respond to people's needs, which may include international protection. Displacement is usually divided into forced and voluntary, depending on its causes. Forced displacement is triggered by a state measure, whether legal or arbitrary, or by an individual's decision to flee persecution by state agents or by private actors that the state is unwilling or unable to control. It may too be prompted by a violent context in which individuals fear for their life, liberty, and security. Causes of forced displacement may also include natural or human-made disasters. Voluntary displacement is the result of an individual's decision, which in many cases is triggered by people's hope to improve their lives and that of their children and relatives by seeking access to jobs, better working conditions, education, health treatment, or a better social and cultural environment. Family reasons are also an important factor in displacement decisions. When displacement takes place across international borders, the reasons explaining the decision to abandon one's place of origin and settling in another state are key to differentiate migrants from refugees and from victims of smuggling of immigrants and trafficking in persons. Assessing the status of the person crossing an international border is essential to determine the content and scope of states' obligation towards foreigners entering their territory. In human displacement, there are push and pull factors. Displacement may be explained by structural factors, but individual decisions are also relevant. Displaced persons may be refugees, asylum seekers, internally displaced persons, migrants, and victims of smuggling of immigrants and trafficking in persons. In 1951, the United Nations adopted the Convention on the Status of Refugees, also known as the Refugee Convention. which currently has 145 state parties. This convention develops the concept of refugee as a status of international protection and sets forth state obligations in this regard. It also lays out the circumstances under which a person may be excluded from the refugee status protection and when this status may be seized, cancelled, or revoked. In 1967, a protocol to the Refugee Convention eliminated the geographical and time limitations initially included in the refugee definition, a reflection of the admission by the international community that after World War II, other events continued to generate flows of refugees. The concept of refugee set forth in the Convention is the following: a person who is unable or unwilling to return to her country of origin or residence owing to a well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion. The Refugee Convention sets forth three main principles: non-refoulement, which establishes that no state shall expel, return, or refuse entry to a person against her will, if she fears for her life, personal integrity, or freedom. Many argue that the principle of non-refoulement has jus cogens status, that is, a norm which states cannot overrule by any means, non-discrimination, and non-penalization in the case of illegal entry or permanence in the country. In 1950, the Office of the High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, was established by the General Assembly of the United Nations. Its main goal is to provide assistance and protection to refugees and people in refugee-like situations. Initially, UNHCR had a 3-year mandate, but soon it became evident that it needed to be continued to respond to diverse situations that have resulted in refugee flows across the world. The agency's mandate has also expanded to include stateless persons, and it intervenes in situations of forced internal displacement on the basis that an inadequate response may result in refugee flows. UNHCR estimates persons of interest in 43 million, which include 27.1 million internally displaced persons, 15.2 million refugees, 6.6 million stateless persons, and around 1 million asylum seekers. At the regional level, in Africa and Latin America, efforts have been made to broaden the scope of the refugee definition, eliminating the requirement of persecution and listing situations in which individuals flee as a result of events that threaten their life, freedom, and personal integrity, such as internal armed conflict, foreign aggression, massive violations of human rights, generalized violence, and other grave threats. At the same time, in Europe, regional borders have replaced national borders for the purpose of the Convention. The UNHCR and the international community work together trying to find creative solutions to the plight of refugees, including mechanisms for burden sharing among state parties to the 1951 Convention that establishes an international responsibility towards refugees. Political asylum emerged in the Americas as a legal institution based on regional treaties. These treaties differentiate between territorial and diplomatic asylum. In essence, asylum consists of the right of a person who is persecuted for political motives to seek refuge or protection in the territory of another state or in its diplomatic premises. Following such concept, human rights instruments such as the American Declaration of the Rights and Duties of Man, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the American Convention on Human Rights include the right to seek asylum. Nowadays, most scholars argue that political asylum is included within the refugee definition, and its importance is limited to the possibility to request diplomatic asylum in the country of persecution or in a third country. There is only one binding instrument pertaining to internal displacement: the African Union Convention for the Protection and Assistance of Internally Displaced Persons in Africa, also known as the Kampala Convention. The international community has produced soft law on this matter, the guiding principles on internal displacement. The concept of internally displaced persons, IDPs, includes persons fleeing their homes in order to avoid the effect of armed conflict, situations of generalized violence, violations of human rights, or natural or human-made disasters, and who have not crossed an international recognized state border. The core idea is that the state is responsible for ensuring and protecting the rights of persons under its jurisdiction and must be held accountable for its actions towards IDPs. There are both domestic and international migrants, that is, persons who establish themselves temporarily or permanently in a place different from their habitual residence. Domestic migration is considered as the exercise of the right of freedom of movement. International migration, on the other hand, depends on the authorization of the receiving state for a person to enter and reside in a country different from that of their nationality. The International Convention on the Protection of the Rights of All Migrant Workers and Members of Their Families sets forth state obligations in regards to all migrant workers and develops additional elements of those rights in the case of authorized migrants. The greatest challenge faced by states and intergovernmental human rights bodies has been to insist that rights may not be violated or restricted in the practice of their immigration policy. The Convention has been ratified mostly by sending countries. The state has the duty to protect victims of crimes. Smuggling of immigrants and trafficking in persons are international crimes defined in the Palermo Protocols of the Convention on Organized Transnational Crime of 2000. Victims may be non-nationals, and a balance must be sought between prosecution and protection. Thank you. I hope this class was useful, and if you want to learn more, please visit mookchile.com.